Shakespeare wrote at the end of the 16th and the beginning of the 17th century. This was the period of the English Renaissance, a word that was borrowed from French, meaning rebirth. During this time, the English language too was reborn. English vocabulary was rapidly changing. It expanded, grew, flowered, and exploded with new words. This is the story of the growth of Shakespeare's English. And it's an adventure that starts on water. Most important changes in the English language had come about through foreign invasions. But in the late 16th century, the legendary repulsion of an invasion started off a new chapter in the adventure of English. In 1588, English ships were battling it out with the Spanish Armada. Elizabeth I was queen of 3.5 million subjects and determined not to surrender to a much stronger and much bigger enemy. She appeared before a crowd at the port of Tilbury and, using all her skill with rhetoric, together with the power of an English language growing rapidly in richness and eloquence, she delivered her rallying cry.
I am come to live or die amongst you all, to lay down for my God and for my kingdom and for my people, my honor and my blood, even in the dust. I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and valor of a king, and of a king of England, too. Not Spain, nor any prince of Europe shall dare to invade the borders of realm. Pluck up your hearts. By your peace in camp and your valor in the field, we shall shortly have a famous victory.
Elizabeth's famous call to arms at Tilbury, delivered here by Dame Flora Robeson in this 1937 film, has been told and retold for over 400 years. It's because Elizabeth understood how to use the new power and resonance of the English language to inspire her people. And this new power of the English language reflected the naval strength of a small country that was able to hold off the Spanish Armada. But Elizabethan ships were doing something far more important still as far as language was concerned. Naval supremacy opened up the world to trade. As England imported a huge cargo of goods, the English language imported a cargo of vocabulary alongside. A stunning 10,000 to 12,000 new words entered English in this period, bringing with them new ideas. By the time of the Spanish Armada, English was still lagging behind other European languages in the influence it exerted in the newly conquered territories abroad. Portuguese had already made its mark in Brazil, and Spanish had been spoken in Cuba and Mexico for more than half a century. Elsewhere, Arabic had spread through the Middle East over 800 years earlier, and Hindi was comfortably establishing itself as a vernacular, if not a literary language, throughout the Indian region. But on a very much smaller scale, English was at least beginning to make its mark. During the 16th century, it had begun to spread to parts of Wales, Scotland and Ireland. English was spreading, but English was also absorbing. Some of the thousands of new words that entered the language came from just across the Channel. England's thriving maritime trade was most successful close to home. And it's not surprising that French, which had a long history of providing words to English, was to provide English with many of its nautical and meteorological terms. Words like crew, detail, passport, progress, moustache and explore were traded into English from French. Other maritime terms like embargo, tornado, canoe and port come to us from both Spanish and Portuguese. We get keelhaul, smuggle, yacht, decoy, cruise and reef, along with knapsack and landscape from Dutch. And although the popular myth is that Anglo-Saxon gave English all its swear words, it was sailors that brought us fucking, crap and bugger from Low Dutch, now called Flemish, in the 16th century. Anglo-Saxon is in the clear. But But these sailors brought back more than just colourful language. Their trading expeditions to Europe and the Spanish Main literally bore fruit and barrel loads of other goods that was to affect the English language at the most domestic of levels. More of our food began to come from abroad, and many of our food terms have Renaissance origins. Spanish and Portuguese gave us new delicacies and new words for them too. Here at Borough Market, which would have existed in Shakespeare's day, we can see these goods such as apricots, bananas, limes, mandarins, yams, potatoes, and anchovies, cocoa, maize and port wine. Meanwhile, the words for chocolate and tomato come to us from the French. And as sailors and traders told tales of the New World, words from a total of 50 other languages joined the cargo of new words that were integrated into English. English now bristled with newly imported terms from overseas: lychee from Chinese, bamboo and ketchup from Malay, and curry from Tamil. During the 16th century, English also imported yogurt and hoard from Turkish, bazaar and turban from Persia, and coffee, magazine and alcohol from Arabic. It wasn't just the traders who returned to England bearing their exotic goods and linguistic wealth. English artists, scholars and aristocrats explored Italy and its culture, which was the dominating influence of that time. There they wondered at the architecture and the science and the music, carrying back new ideas and a sumptuous lexicon to describe them. So, balcony, still pronounced at that time in the Italian manner, balconi, as well as fresco, villa, cupola, portico, piazza, miniature and design are all from Italian, as are opera, violin, solo, sonata, soprano, trill, cameo and carnival. But the biggest influx of words came from the classical languages, Latin and Greek. In the 16th century, here at Oxford and also at Cambridge, the Renaissance scholars wanted to revive Latin. They founded schools teaching pure and literary Latin and Greek, and they also translated classical texts into English.
Honorem Domini nostri Jesu Christi et ad profectum sacrosanctae natis ecclesiae et studii.
Latin is still used ceremonially today at Oxford University. In the 16th century, it was not only the language of religion, but also the language of classical thought, science and philosophy.
In nomine Domini, Patris, Filii, et Spiritus Sancti.
Latin was the language of scholarship, controversy and diplomacy. English scholars spoke and wrote in Latin so that they could communicate and debate with other European scholars.
Gratias a collegiis vel societatis suis pro gradibus quaestis concessas tuisse et eoster mihi satisficense.
Latin had been spoken by some people in England for over 1,500 years, since Roman times. But though it was the language of scholarship, on an everyday basis things were changing. Everyone, from the common people to the academics and the Queen, now spoke English and not Latin, even though Latin was still a compulsory subject in schools.